Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Blue Soak. Again, John, Dave, and myself. We're going to look back over Leinster's victory against Racing at the weekend, all the other European Cup action. Look forward to our game against Cardiff at the weekend, and of course, talk about Ireland's Six Nations Championship that's coming up very soon. So, lads, 36-10 against Racing in the Aviva. Pretty good victory, and obviously we've signed off with 4 from 4, maximum points and top seeding.
And we had the game. The thing that people said that maybe we haven't had that much adversity in games, and this time we did, and we overcame it to get the win. So I mean, it was. I mean, in fairness to Racing, they were kind of up for it for the first hour, 70 minutes. I think their fitness fell off in the end, but at least they gave us a run out, which they hadn't in the first game.
Yeah, it's interesting that they played better in their away game than they did in their home game. We were losing at 50 minutes, I think, or we certainly weren't winning by much.
Did you ever feel under threat, though, John?
Not really, to be fair.
I have to say, like from where I was, they were attacking the end where I was in the first half. We were attacking, and I just never thought. Like we just tried to do a bit too fancy, a bit too intricate, overplayed our hand a little bit. But I just thought we were never really under too much pressure. And they could have, if they just had held on to the odd pass, they would have been 3 tries up.
What did we not do? We didn't earn the right to go wide early on.
In fairness to them, they defended very, very well. I mean, both their tries. I mean, the first try was from a block down kick, and a guy who would have been offside was onside because of the block down, and they got the possession up the field. Then Finn Russell saw a prop and ran at him, kind of thing. So there was a confluence of circumstance there, and the other one was from a maul, which I mean we defended that quite poorly. It must be said, sure, but they didn't have to do a whole lot to get entry into the game. Now at the same time, they did work hard when they didn't have the ball and gave us a bit more of a workout than we've had previously. But as you say, Jay, I mean we did overplay the ball sometimes. There were balls put down when we were in pretty much scoring position, or certainly in assist position, and at the end of the day, once we cut those errors out, we brought on Sheehan and Baird, who I thought were superb, and upped the pace. And once we upped the pace, they couldn't live with it.
Yeah, well, we were always going to do that, and that's probably why we weren't feeling when we went 12-10 down. We weren't feeling too terrible. Or sorry, we went 10-7 down. We were actually sat behind the bench, the Racing bench, so we could see the looks of despair or looks of happiness early on in the game. We like some of the tries we scored are phenomenal. Both the ones that Gary Ringrose assist were amazing. The one where he ran down the field, scooped the ball while still running at speed, offloaded it as he was falling over perfectly for the assist, and just a walk in. Then it was. And the other one was similar. Like he gave Jimmy O'Brien a walk in, and for the first try as well. It was thing of beauty. Lovely wraparound in that move as well with Ross Byrne on the first.
Yeah, there wasn't a single hand laid on one of our players on that one.
Exactly.
I used to be quite critical of Ringrose and think that he held onto the ball a lot. I think that he's really improved his distribution this season, and I would say that he's shown the amount of improvement that, say, Josh van der Flier showed since the World Cup. Just like he's playing the best rugby of his career now, I would say.
Oh,
and he couldn't have timed it better with a Heineken Cup final in Dublin and obviously the World Cup over in France. It's like he's hitting some serious amount of form, but like he's moving up from, say, getting 7s every week to he'd be close to getting 9s every week now, the way he's playing.
And the other thing is, you say he's hitting form, he's also hitting attackers.
When you get hit by him, you know you've been hit.
He's really, really taken that to another level. Yeah. And the captaincy suits him. he seems to be very, very comfortable with himself as captain on the pitch, deals with the referees very well. Referee management there's two ways of doing it. There's the way Johnny Sexton and, the likes of Owen Farrell do it, where they, completely dominate the referee and the referee's kind of scared them. And then there's the way that Gary Ringrose and others do it, where they cajole the referee and bring the referee round to their point of view.
Like that's what Warburton used to do. Like I probably think maybe Martin Johnson, I think, did 2 Lions tours, but Warburton did 2 as well, didn't he? So, he obviously captained them to Grand Slams too. So that sort of that attitude, as you say, Dave, with being sort of palsy with the referee, definitely seems to be more successful than being confrontational with them.
Sure.
If you're going to be confrontational with them, you have to be one of like the 2 or 3 best players in the world, and that only works for 2 or 3 guys. Now Johnny happens to be one of them, but it really is. It's a limited style.
Well, you can see the refs getting pissed off. No, there's times when you're going bite your lip, Johnny. Jesus Christ! Now we're quite often at the game, so we wouldn't be as aware unless it's an international and you have a ref mic or a radio or something. But just his body language. Sometimes you're looking at him on the field going, Jesus, don't say anything, John. Calm down.
You remember the famous one, you don't like me, but you have to talk to me like that.
Talk to me,
There is a lot to be said for that kind of the ref being scared to give a decision against you, because then he'll have to explain it to you.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was good to get such a test in that game, and also to win it so well. Like 36-10 against that Racing team is pretty impressive. You'd nearly be afraid of it getting carried away, with your top seed status, and it's all very well being top seeds, but you still have to go and play the knockout games and win them all. And there's now 4 that between us and and lifting the trophy in our local stadium. The good news is, if we keep winning them, we keep playing them in our local stadium, which is a great thing to have in the pocket.
And another thing that people, one thing we're often scared about at this time of year is, like, just purely with our Leinster hats on, is if the players go away to the Irish camp and then they come back injured and stuff like that.
It's a big worry.
That is a worry. But the other side of that is, they're going to go away to the Irish camp. The Irish team will probably be 10 Leinster players in it, at least. So they're going to be going away. They're going to be playing with their own guys, and And one thing about Six Nations is they'll be ridden hard in the Six Nations. They'll get a real workout, so they'll come back into the Leinster camp, sharp.
Sharp, if not injured.
That's the price we pay, John. That's the system we have, and it works out for us. We have to take swings with the roundabouts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have to take smokes with the daggers, as we have to take smokes with the daggers, as Bertie would say.
Absolutely. But let's say you're one of those weird people who's, I don't know, lives in Dublin and is from another rugby.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And you support, let's say, I don't know, you support France, and you're a French person working in Google, but you love rugby so much you support Leinster. You're going to you don't give a shite.
Leave Johnny's head out of this.
You don't give a shite about the Irish team. You just want to see Leinster do well. So in that hypothetical and very small situation, you want Leinster players putting cotton wool for the whole of the Six Nations. But
I've never really subscribed to that thing, because
because we're Ireland fans. Of course.
Because we're Ireland fans. B, because if Ireland were playing, Leinster be playing, and they could just as easily get injured playing for Leinster as Ireland. And C, they could drop a bottle of shampoo on their foot in the shower in the morning. So you can wrap guys up in cotton wool, but if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. I'm a very karmic person.
Fair enough.
But I want to bring in a discussion at after the end of the wrap up of the Heineken Cup, which kind of we'll touch on all that kind of Ireland versus other countries systems, and obviously how they sort of have their view the Heineken Cup and how their system works in comparison to ours. But just returning to the game, there was some outstanding performances. Our back row is phenomenal. Like Darius is just.
So you
playing
just
at
have
a
to narrow it
different
down,
level.
Jason, because we've got 3 or 4 back rows that are phenomenal.
Yeah, I know. It is,
Complete
but
back
like I'm
rows.
just saying, yeah. Well, all 3 of them that started were fantastic, and when Bird came on, he was fantastic. Like there's such depth. It wasn't that long ago that we were kind of lamenting fellas getting injured and going away and saying, "Geez, how are we going to replace Levy?" Levy seemed to be a generational type player, and it's as though, like, obviously, it's terrible, sad that he's had to retire. You know, before his whole career was fulfilled. But we honestly would hardly notice him gone. Sean O'Brien similarly. He's gone and we passed the baton on, and this baton passing is just it's like even bringing through Jamie Osborne. Do you know what I mean? Like it's only a couple of seasons ago he was playing for the Ireland under-20s, and all of a sudden, he's in the Irish squad. There's talk of it's like, well, we've missed Robbie Henshaw. He's been out injured for a few games in the last year. Hardly noticed that he's gone because these are just being replaced by superbly gifted players. It's phenomenal, really.
There's the thing, you talk about the back row. That was Scott Penny's European debut.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Max Deegan wasn't there. Reese Ruddock.
Yeah, Max Deegan, Reese Ruddock, Will Connors. An Irish international not all that long ago. Mm-hmm. So you're absolutely right, Jason. The production line, certainly in the back row at least, and indeed in other positions, but certainly in the back row is just it's just producing great players. And then there's guys who we haven't seen a lot of yet, but I've got a feeling, for example, I feel Alex Soroka will be the real deal. Whether he ends up as a 6 or a 5.5 kind of thing, I don't know, but I think he's going to be a real player for us as well. So the selection headaches are going to continue. And then there's like James Culhane from the under-20s last year, who's looked good anytime I've seen him.
Your man Martin Maloney looked pretty good before he got injured as well.
Yeah.
I think I've seen, I think it was in an A game, I've seen Soroka play 8 as well. So a bit of a tight burn kind of utility player there, can play 6, 8, 4, 5, Well, see if he does it at senior level. But yeah, it's kind of scary. Well, it's always been a position of strength for Irish teams in general, and Leinster in particular, I think. It's the one, when you compare it to hookers and scrum halves that we have real trouble with.
But the great thing at the moment is because whatever way it's happening is a lot of these guys have got game time under them. Yeah. Okay, we talk about Scott Penny making his European debut, but he's got what, 50 Leinster caps, scored 49 Leinster tries kind of thing. So, these are guys who they're already hardened. Even if they're young, even if they're inexperienced, they've got, a body of work behind them.
Speaking of young and inexperienced and hardened, Joe McCarthy. I have a feeling you could hit him with a shovel and he'd just turn around and smile at you. He's pretty hardy young fella, and Jamie Osborne, who you already mentioned, is a tough lad for for their age. The two of them, like yourself, if you can remember that long ago, when you're 21, 22 years of age, you just don't have the strength and power that you're gonna have in about 3 years' time when you're really into your physical prime, from strength point of view. So these guys are so developed so early and are.
So remember, because it's actually been on Twitter a fair bit over the last week. Jamie Osborne's first involvement for Leinster came on. Scarlets had a a line out, went down to their second centre, who I think might have been what's his name? Is it Baldwin or Williams, whatever his name is? And Osborne's first involvement was to grab him and drag him back about 10 or 15 meters.
Mm-hmm. And Eddie Butler was waxing lyrically. Phenomenal amount of young talent come through, and even fellas that have been around, like the much maligned Ross Byrne. Like he's grown into his role within the club. I was talking to someone there just at the weekend at the game, and I can't put my finger on it, but one thing that I did kind of think of, maybe he just has that little bit more confidence now because obviously what happened in the game against Australia, getting into the Irish squad, but also he's kind of sees the end of the tunnel as regards been in Sexton's shadow. So Sexton has, the end of this season. Don't know many more games he'll play for Leinster. Obviously, the bigger games he'll play, but I'm sure Ross Byrne is saying, "God, I can step out of this lad's shadow now, and could be my time."
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing we were saying last week, Jay, about Ross Byrne is it was always seen as a way if you could flood Ross Byrne, you could reduce his effectiveness if you could get lots of guys in on him and on his channel. But because of the way Leinster play, where as often as not, the first receiver isn't the out half. Guys who are flooding Ross Byrne's channel are going to be meeting Ross Maloney, and that's a different kettle of fish. And it gives him a bit more space and time because they can't push up hard on him because he's not necessarily going to be the receiver. The other side of that is, okay, he's not lightning quick, but he's using his physicality a lot more this season. He's playing harder to the line, and I mean he's a big guy, and now he's playing like a guy who's that size.
Yeah, he's similarly sized to Sexton, maybe not quite as powerful, but he's same height and
Yeah.
You look at Sexton though. Sexton appears to be made of elbows.
Yeah. Well, it's just when you said that, I thought that it's funny when you're trying to go down Ross Byrne's channel and ending up in Ross Maloney. You're not the Ross I was expecting here. Excuse me. Oh shit. But yeah, what I was going to say about Ross Byrne is your man Andrew Goodman is coming to the fore now as a coach.
Yeah,
and I wonder, has that got something to do with it? He was a 10-12 himself.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, because I think you're starting to see little touches of his coaching with some of our backs moves, and so he's going to step up and be the attack coach now that Stuart is gone. So he's really getting his fingers into the team, and I think maybe I could be wrong, but maybe that's something to do with Ross Byrne's improvement as well, because he really has improved. I mean, you would see him as a season ago. You might see him as a safe pair of hands. He could finish a game out. He could, but if you didn't have Sexton, you'd be going.
But I thought, say, that match in Marseille, I was a little bit like, this is the games that you have to be brilliant. It's all right being brilliant in the game when you're winning it handsomely against, a Glasgow or whoever, but you have to stand up for the match in the final of Europe against the as ultimately happened, the best team in Europe. And I did think that when Sexton went off, our standards dropped a little bit.
Yeah.
So, but
the thing about Ross Byrne has always been somebody who's like not officer class, but when he's invited into the mess, knows which knife and fork to use. Whereas now he turns up, in mess kit. That's where he belongs.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he'll stay there for a while. So, just wanted obviously Leo put pen to paper for a 2-year deal. I saw on the newspaper today, which is good because there's a lot of change, as we've spoken about previously, going on in the club. Obviously a new CEO, Stuart's gone, Johnny's gone. So you need to have that stability with Leo there. And you had some mad statistic there, John, earlier you shared on WhatsApp of he spent 112 years or something in Leinster at the moment.
Well, he's done. He will have
been
done
here for half of John's life.
He will have done a quarter of a century at Leinster by the end of his contract. 14 years as a player and 11 as a coach, and that's not even counting the 2 years he spent at Leicester. So that's he's already done 25 years in rugby. And in 2 years' time, when his contract finishes, he'll have done 25 years of it at Leinster. So that's pretty phenomenal. And the fact that they're still listening to him after he's been coach for 9 years. This is 9th season he's coming up to the end of.
But isn't it mad how he remains floating underneath the
radar?
The radar.
Yeah.
He has no ego. I've said it before. The guy has no ego.
Yeah. I know, but he would be in the frame when is Leo Cullen going to become the Ireland manager? If he had worn a red jersey instead of a blue jersey in his playing career, or if he was currently coaching further
Maybe.
south down the M7.
Well, nobody from Cork could ever be described as not having an ego for a start. The other side of it is one thing he's done very, very well is the cast of characters under him changes, and he's managed that change very well. So whether it's Stuart Lancaster or Andrew Goodman or Dennis Leamy or Sean O'Brien or whoever, there's been a change, and he's managed the change very well. So Cheika used to say you got 5 years and then players are sick of listening to you. Well, that's not happened for us, because the guys that they're the day-to-day guys, if you want, the guys who are on the pitch with them, have changed.
Yeah, but that's what Alex Ferguson used to do with his backroom staff, wasn't he? Obviously, he was the figurehead, but all his boot room, as you call it, John, all kind of were changed on a fairly cyclical basis, so that the players didn't get sick of them because they were gone. Yeah. So anyway, we had I'm just looking at some of the statistics, like ridiculous. We had 150 points differential. We beat Racing.
I wonder, actually, people have been saying, why did Leinster play for that last try? I suppose they couldn't have known that. Actually, no, ignore me. Sorry.
Well, we beat Racing on a combined over the two games, an aggregate score of 78-20. We scored 28 tries and only conceded 5. We scored 184. We scored 184 points in total and only conceded 34. Like, really, really impressive statistics. And when you look at sort of the way other clubs approach the Heineken Cup, we obviously said, well, the Heineken Cup is in Dublin this year. We're going to guarantee 100%. And the way the competition is structured, all you have to do is top your pool, and you're guaranteed, should you win the remaining games, they'll all be paid in your home, in our home ground, considering that the final is in Dublin. Like, I thought it was a seriously professional performance over those four games, and keeping up. Like, we've won 12 from 12 in the URC as well. So that, that's 16 from 16 thus far this season. Like, it's savage.
It is. Long may it continue.
Yeah, there's nothing you can say to argue with that. I mean, obviously, I would suggest that they had probably had a meeting at the beginning of the season in which they outlined their goals. And one of their goals was to, as you say, not only finish top of the pool, but make sure that they were the #1 seed all the way through. And they were left nothing to risk. They weren't going to get pipped on points difference,
Yeah, that's but true. As well, I would say that meeting was whenever they sobered up after the final in Marseille, that they said, right, the coach is going, the talisman who's been the helm of the team for 14 or 15 years is going. It's a last chance saloon. This team can be just another run-of-the-mill European Cup champions, or can say, well, we've won 2 Heineken Cups in 5 years. It's a very impressive thing to say, but say what you've won 1 in 10 years isn't all that impressive.
No, and 2 in 5 years, and also been in, I think, 2 finals and semis.
Yeah. You only get to say that, though, if you win the second one.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, anyway, some of the other results. I suppose Munster, another fantastic display down in Toulouse. They've really turned around their season. The brave and the faithful were outstanding. And I mean, it's all looking very positive for them, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a great win. Oh, hold on. You mean they lost?
Well, they went to play Toulouse in Toulouse.
No, I thought they were. No, I'm taking the mick there, because sometimes the hype does get too much. I thought they were superb. I thought they were absolutely brilliant. I thought they played Toulouse the only way you can play one of those teams, and that's run them around the park. And Munster ran them around the park, bit like Racing, and it might be a lesson for us, and kind of a mistake. Going back to a mistake we made against La Rochelle, Toulouse were blowing out their backsides with about 10 or 15 minutes to go. I was actually struck by it. The Toulouse pack is very good at what it does, But if you stop it doing what it wants to do, it has real problems. And Munster stopped them doing what they want to do. The other side of it is Toulouse have great backs, but they've great backs individually. There was a couple of times where there was wide shots, and the Toulouse back, you know how quickly when Leinster backs get back into position, they take their shape. This is when they have the ball really, really quickly. Toulouse backs were just ambling back into some semblance of position. A lot of what Toulouse do is based on their players' individual brilliance. Their system doesn't seem to be that good at all, and Munster were really, really clever at taking advantage of it.
I was impressed with them anyway. They were tough and well drilled, and yeah, it does kind of line up. Lots of false dawns for them and whatever. It does look like they have turned the corner. Famous.
I have to say, cleverest moment of the weekend from any rugby player this weekend. How many times have we heard the complaint from players and fans? A guy is trapped on the wrong side and he can't get out of the way, and everybody says, "Well, what's he supposed to do?" He's supposed to do what Tadhg Beirne did. Tadhg Beirne played the ball back so that they could play it and not give away a penalty. That was super clever play.
It was excellent.
Yeah. I'll tell you another bit of very clever play was Eben Estevez going down and nicking the ball off Danny Kerr when Joe Marler was just leaning nonchalantly on the hip of the caterpillar. And
you have to be round along the full length of the arm.
You do, but I had to laugh at Lawrence Delalio and Austin Healy. But it doesn't happen like this in the Gallagher Premiership, which surely is the most prestigious rugby tournament that we
in their
have.
Minds.
Of course, in their minds, yeah.
It's the most prestigious rugby championship in their minds.
Austin Healy is increasingly well named because he's turning into Jeremy Clarkson.
Yeah,
I don't know who that's harsh on because they're both arseholes. It's like that's a competition I don't want to be in. Who's the biggest arsehole of those two?
Yeah, just going back to the Munster match briefly. Like things are just getting worse for Carbery, aren't they? You know, he did make the Irish squad, and then he was taken off after 50 minutes, and he just looks like while he did put in a lovely crossfield kick for that Tadhg Beirne try, did feel that he's lost a little bit of his, like we're talking about Ross Byrne, brimming with confidence. I think that I think he's taken all of Joey's.
The one thing I was puzzled at actually was, why didn't they put him to fullback that time? I mean, if there's one guy out there, they put Crowley back in there and he did well, but we know that Joey Carbery is a Heineken Cup standard fullback because he'd done it before. I thought it was strange.
Maybe they're not allowed.
I don't know.
I'll tell you one thing, I thought Bakatawa made a huge difference when he came in.
Yeah, but I think he
was
playing for a contract or for a contract with somebody else. You know, he could be.
Yeah, but he was certainly playing for something anyway.
Yeah. Ben Healy, of course, off to Scotland. I saw a picture of him in his Scottish gear.
Yeah.
Eating a plate of leaps and tatties, no doubt.
Followed by Cooney very soon. I can see Cooney going straight into that squad, and perhaps being on the bench against us at the beginning of March. Who knows? I mean, what do I know?
Well, like we said last week, I know I think you got somebody got a bit confused, but no, it's Cooney I was talking about. Cooney's not eligible until round 3.
Yeah, but they're
because
playing.
He played in round 2 3 years ago.
They're playing us in round 4, so
yeah, so he would be eligible for that game. Yeah,
he could be sitting on the bench or whatever.
Yeah,
or he could be lining up a penalty in the Stade de France in October.
That's true.
Anyway, we'll see whether he goes. But like, he's probably more qualified. Seems that his father is rather than a grandfather is Scottish.
And he's sure granny, I think, isn't it?
Yeah,
but I'm
sure. Yeah, no, of course they're both entitled to go. But I was talking to somebody actually today about him. Like he's played for 3 provincial sides, and if he can add a second country to his resume, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that he'd be the closest, I suppose, seeing as nobody.
That's a full house, right?
nobody's done the forfeit on a provincial basis, but adding a second country to it would put them on top of the list.
Definitely. So, just some of the other, I suppose, just for a quick look, like just looking at the two tables, right? So there has been the 3 Irish teams have got through, the three South African teams have got through, the 1 Welsh and the 1 Scottish team have all got through. However, 3 of the English teams, 8 didn't, and 5 of the French 8 didn't make it through. I watched a very interesting podcast, or listened to it today. It was a discussion with Shane Horgan, Ronan O'Gara, James Haskell, and an English guy. I can't remember his name now, but he's coach of Scarlets. But I thought it was really, really interesting, and just the whole perception of the clubs, particularly the English and the.
No, it's not. He's Osprey. Sorry, carry on.
But very interesting debate just on the English and French clubs' view of the Heineken Cup. Now, take Haskell, like him or dislike him, that's fine. But they kind of asked him, what was your view as a player of? What was your view of, where did you see the Heineken Cup? And he said, the Heineken Cup was just one level below international. And he said, you can go and you can play against what other club team in the Guinness Premiership or the Gallagher Premiership, whatever it was at the time. But when he was talking out against the European team, he knew it was a higher level and a better standard and a better quality of competition. But sadly, for whatever, we know the reasons. Of course, we know the reasons why. But the tournament has been ruined. It's actually the 10th anniversary of when they gave notice, the English and the French clubs gave notice and walked out and set up this new competition. But obviously we know since COVID, they've changed the format of it and made a complete hames of it. And, with teams, winning, like the Gloucester situation where they just send out seconds and concede nearly 100 points against us and still qualify, or Ulster won one game and still qualify. Like that, it just makes a mockery of it. Like, you think back to the glory days of when it was the Heineken Cup. If you won 4 out of 6 games, you were likelihood that you scraped in, but you were away for your quarterfinal. If you had, really the only way to guarantee yourself a home quarterfinal was to win at least 5 of those games and to pick up a losing bonus point in the 6th game. But my biggest fear, and I've ranted on for a bit here, my biggest fear of it is that the English and the French sides will just throw their hat at it. And then where does that leave us? Thank God the South Africans have come in, because it gives us gives us somebody to play with.
There's your answer, Jay. Where does that leave us with the South Africans?
For
now, anyway. But I think. You look at the problem. You talk about the 10-year anniversary. We're rehashing old ground, but 2 of the problems they had was there was only one sponsor, and 24 teams was too many. Well, next year there'll be 24 teams and only one sponsor, who's paying less than they used to pay.
Do you know how much they play? Do you know what percentage? 25%. 25%.
25. Yeah, I was going to say it's a quarter. Yeah.
Yeah, it's they pay 3 million compared to 12 million back in the day. And
I remember, Jay, there was a bidding war for the Heineken Cup sponsorship. Heineken were worried that their brand was becoming genericized in the Heineken Cup, that people weren't associating Heineken with beer anymore. They were associating it. So in territories like Ireland, where you order beer by name, as in other countries where you don't, but in territories like Ireland, where a majority of free houses, they were worried that their brand was becoming genericized, and they were thinking of stepping back. And then they realized, oh no, crap, we can't do that. And there was a bidding war between themselves and Fiat.
Yeah.
For the naming rights. Those days are gone now, and in the past they shall remain, to quote Ben Healy.
Yeah, or maybe even John Cooney. John Cooney's dad, anyway. Yeah, the The tournament is a bit of a shadow of its former self for various reasons, not least of which COVID, Brexit, all kinds of reasons. But we are still the most committed nation to the Heineken Cup. Like, it's still a priority for us. It's still,
And we're probably the only nation where that's the case, John.
that's my point exactly. The South Africans are so new to it; they're just feeling their way into it. They haven't had time to form an opinion, I'd say, of it yet. They're only in it a wet day. Played 4 games. This Welsh couldn't give a shite about it. The Scots, yeah, I'd say they think it's pretty important, but at the end of the day, they've never done.
Scots will always follow the money.
The best they've ever done is, a semi-final, and those days are in the past. The Italians are not really at the races, and they're going to prioritise the league. French, there's about 2 clubs that give a shite about the Heineken Cup: La Rochelle and Toulouse. Maybe Racing on a good day, but not this season. So
that's a point, John. People often they say, "Oh, if the Heineken Cup goes, it'll go down because the English and French will take it down." And that's true. But the English and French have very different reasons for wanting to take it down, or would be that. I mean, the English have a very insular, and they become increasingly insular and inward looking over the years. Whereas the French, they get huge money for playing top 14 games, massive money.
In this podcast, and I don't want to keep going back and quoting from it, but I just one example was O'Gara was asked, like there was no history of Heineken Cup rugby in La Rochelle prior to him taking over, and he said, "Well, I just told him about how important and how brilliant it can be," and he's brought them on a similar kind of, to use that horrible word, journey that Munster that he was involved with 20 odd years ago. And when we saw the pictures the day after, when down in their town, where there was 3/4 of the town was out around the port welcoming the team back, he said, I don't have to say another word about the importance of this competition to the sponsors, the owners, or the players, because they've seen how absolutely brilliant it is. Whereas
I agree with you 100%, Jay. But you look at a club like a far bigger club than La Rochelle, who are far more successful than La Rochelle. Castres couldn't give a shit about the Heineken Cup.
No, never have, never ever have.
I mean, they won the top 14 twice in the last 5-10 years.
But they always seem
semi-finals and they don't care about the Heineken Cup.
Yeah, but they always seem to scrape into the barrage rather than lead. You know what I mean?
But their season is focused around the barrage.
100%. I agree with you. Yeah.
That's what they want. They time their runs. So there's a club, like a big club in terms of their silverware and stuff like that, who quite frankly couldn't care less about the Heineken Cup. So what the Heineken Cup really needs is, I mean, it needs the commercial clout to say to French teams, no, it's more valuable to be playing this competition than the top 14. Now, you'll never set aside the tradition of the top 14, and I wouldn't want that to happen. It's, the oldest professional, if you like, rugby competition. It's certainly the oldest organized rugby competition that's at this level. But in terms of money, the money has to come. Yeah. Otherwise, they won't bother. I mean, one thing you're talking about, how long the South Africans will be interested in. I think Munster having to go to South Africa actually might be a brilliant thing, because it's a Heineken Cup knockout game. Munster will bring a full squad. There'll be a fully loaded squad going down to South Africa, because it's a Heineken Cup game somewhere sunny. They'll bring all their fans. So South Africa will get a taste of the authentic European Heineken Cup experience.
Yeah.
And I think that could be a great selling point. Munster could be great ambassadors for the competition.
I couldn't agree more. And that's a great point that you make there about they'll actually see, let's say, 3,000-4,000 people traveling down and en masse like that. That will really bring a bit of color and atmosphere to, I'm sure there's not many. I would say there's very few traveling supporters even within South Africa, because it's such a big distance between Durban and Cape Town or wherever.
Yeah.
2
hour flight.
So 2 hour flight, yeah, but I'm sure that's off-putting to some people in South Africa.
No, well, I'm not saying that making it a short distance. It's a 2 hour flight, and Durban's only halfway up South Africa. You know what I mean? And Cape Town's at the bottom, so it's not like it's just showing you how big the go.
Yeah.
You can fly to the south of Spain in less than time than it takes to fly from Durban to
bringing that authentic Heineken Cup experience to South Africa, I think, could make a big difference.
Tough on Munster though. They've got to play down there, come back. If they win, they've got to come back and play another knockout game somewhere else, and then go back to South Africa for 2 games in the URC. That's a tough ask. They'd nearly be better off staying in South Africa or leaving some of the lads down there.
Well, maybe they'll do that. Maybe they bring the. I mean, I don't know what the rules regarding tour party sizes, but maybe they'll go down en masse and leave the guys who are going to play the URC games in South Africa. Maybe leave them at altitude. John's so fond of altitude training; they could do some altitude training.
It could happen. It could happen.
Attitude training, I need.
Well, anyway, at least we're through, and we play Ulster, who pulled their season around. I think they were, 6 or 7 defeats on the trot after losing the second half against us.
Mm-hmm.
Then it all just went belly up for them, but they managed to get that victory against Sale Sharks and miraculously qualified in 8th of their pool, so they play us. So I'm sure they're rubbing their hands together, looking forward to another chance to right the wrongs against Leinster.
And it's a nice day out for Irish rugby. They'll probably fill Lansdowne Road, and it's a good payday for the IRFU, because they'll get the lion's share of the money. So yeah, all good.
The question we have to ask ourselves is, right, 2 statements. Good teams don't become bad teams overnight. Bad teams don't become good teams overnight. Which one is Ulster?
We find out in April.
Because at the beginning of the season, up until really that game, up until 30 seconds before halftime against us in the RDS, Ulster were having a great season, looking like one of the best teams in the tournament in the URC. And then, as Jason says, the wheels fell off the wagon. And the only luck they had was bad luck. Even not the Sale game, but the week before against La Rochelle, they were very unfortunate. So the question is, will they have turned it round, or is there something to turn round?
We shall see. They'll get Heineken Cup Leinster in their grills for a start, so we'll see how that makes them feel.
They've dealt with that in the past.
I was about to say, in that famous quarter-final a few years ago, they certainly did deal with it, and they were unlucky. They were a Stockdale drop pass or dropped ball away from beating us. They should have beaten us, really. So yeah, you just never know. You always say it, Dave, about Interpros. All bets are off. Like, we could be playing top-class rugby, they could be shite, but it's a knockout Heineken Cup game, and they'll have as many fans probably as us are close. And it's it's a kind of a home game for both of us. It's bets are off. You would predict, if you were a neutral, that Leinster are going to beat Ulster, but if they played them 10 times, they might lose 1 or 2. So if they turn up on that day in that mindset,
it's like we have to be lucky every time. They only have to be lucky once.
Well, that's true, but like they haven't been lucky in the last 5 or 10 or whatever it is.
But they won both games last season.
No, I know that, but I'm talking about the significant knockout. I'm not saying important. Like, I do think the URC games are important, but I'm just talking about the significant game where everything is on the line. But one thing I was thinking about, like, if you look at the Irish squad, obviously there's 20 Leinster guys in it. There's 5 Ulster guys in the Irish squad. But you were talking about, was Ulster, could Ulster, were they a good team or a bad team? There doesn't seem to be anyone coming through for them. Like, there was talk of Hume, and then I remember when he scored a try against Leinster in the RDS, he was doing all this stuff about pointing at his number and trying to let on and made it look easy. Like, that's showboating, and that's fair enough. He got carried away in a moment, but he hasn't really kicked on, and a lot of their other players haven't really kicked on. Like, there's 5 in the squad, but you could close your eyes and say what the 5 were. Stuart McCluskey, Stockdale, who was surprised got back in, but he got back in. Henderson, Herring, and O'Toole. You know what I mean? There's no one, but you look at you just say look
Not
at the
a
Leinster
single
one.
first team player there. Not a single one of them is going to be in the starting.
No, well,
15,
Henderson possibly, yeah. But like, if you look at, say, who Leinster have been brought through that are kind of new to the squad, like, so Ross Byrne, I know he's played for Ireland before, but got a bit part in a warm-up game for the World Cup and never really featured very often since. But he's included in it. Jimmy O'Brien, likewise. A couple of years ago we never really heard of him. Jamie Osborne, Joe McCarthy. You know what I mean? These are fellas that while we were bringing through 16 players last season, like, just now 20, because you're adding those lads into the squad. Whereas Ulster are still saying with roughly the same 5, you might drop in Ballachume for McCluskey or Stockdale. Do you know what I mean? But generally it's 5, because they're not deserving of getting more players in the squad.
I think there is talent in that Ulster squad, but that's a personal view based on not a lot of evidence, because I don't think they're well coached. I think McFarlane's time is up.
Is his contract up this season?
No, I think his time is up.
Well, I know what you're saying, but I'm just asking as well.
I don't know. The only thing is, to be perfectly honest, would you let Ulster hire a coach?
Well, it's a World Cup year, and there's a lot of movement in rugby around the World Cup. A lot of things come to an end. A lot of cycles are designed around it, and it affects club rugby as well as international rugby, because there are more coaches on the scout for the job. And you could get unit coaches from international rugby taking head coach roles in club rugby. You could get all kinds of movement. So I wouldn't rule out McFarlane getting a job somewhere else, or B, somebody else being scouted to replace him in Ulster. But sure, time will tell.
But like, if you look at the standard.
So just to tie back into what you were saying, Jason, because I think, you look at age grade players that come out of Ulster, decent young players, and they go nowhere. Likes of Dave McCann, likes of Stuart Moore, like Michael Lowry when he first burst into the thing before McFarlane got his hands on him. The 2 boys in the centre. I've never been a fan of McCluskey, but I was a fan of Humes. Guys on the wing. Now they don't produce a lot of guys with single digits on their back, but at the same time they were producing players. But those players are going nowhere. They're coming out of age grade representative rugby into the Ulster team, and then stopping. They're just plateauing.
Yeah,
I think you're dead right. But like, if you look at the quality of the Leinster coaches over the last 20 years, it's going back probably even to Ruddock. He went from Leinster to winning a Grand Slam with Wales. You had Matt Williams went from Leinster to Scotland.
We won't mention him.
No, but the point.
Post-Leinster career.
Yeah, Ulster.
Yeah, but my point is, though, that he's still going and being selected by a union to go and take, similarly Kidney, regardless, but like, he still went on, won a Grand Slam after a couple of seasons after he left Leinster. Cheika got Australia to the World Cup final. Obviously, we went the other way with Lancaster, but Joe Schmidt went on to do great things with Ireland. You know what I mean? So, like, the standard, I'm saying that the quality of the coaches that Leinster have employed, generally speaking, over the last 20 years, have been there and thereabouts at international standard. Some of them did better than others, but sometimes they've got better tools that they can work with. Whereas if you look at the really only Mark McCall, I would say, of the Ulster coaches has been consistently proven it at that level. Like even you know
John O'Gibbs.
John O'Gibbs got sacked there by Claremont, but did nothing with them for the 2 seasons he's been there.
Has anyone seen what's his name? Anscombe?
No, he hasn't surfaced.
Brian McLaughlin, who was the last, if you like, effective coach in terms of achievement. Well, we all know what happened there. It's I mean, and you juxtapose them with Munster. People would, I mean, I'd look at say Munster and Ulster, and I'd compare their academy setups. I'd say Ulster is far superior, but Munster have a far better record of achievement at a higher level, and that has papered over maybe cracks that were there in the development system, but it has papered over them. Ulster have nothing to paper over. They have no cracks, but there's no wallpaper either.
Yeah, but I think there's some of that is kind of socioeconomic as well. Like Ulster have a very similar system to Leinster, insofar as the schools have academies and they're almost semi-professional 15, 16-year-olds eating the right food, training for 4 times a week, etc., with good coaches. It's a bit different then, and like a lot of them do come through the club system. When they leave school, like particularly in the sort of from going from the 10s into the 20s, there was a savage recession, and a lot of people left, whether to go to Dublin or to go to London, Paris, Boston, or Berlin.
That's an absolutely valid point. I mean, there are socioeconomic factors, and they were particularly harsh on Munster. I mean, Ulster itself has those problems as well, where a lot of guys come out of school and they don't, and they go to university in Scotland and they're lost to the system.
They are, but there's an opportunity for them to get into the Ulster Academy because they're already semi-professional kids going into a professional environment.
Oh yeah, it's nowhere near as severe as the problem
to do that.
Yeah, nowhere near as severe.
Anyway, interesting. So before we wrap up, we obviously take on Cardiff in the URC. I think it's going to be a struggle, particularly with 20 lads away with the Irish squad. We're not sure what the injury situations is with various players. Jenkins, Charlie Natai.
Neither of them will feature.
Hang on a sec, Jason. Hang on a sec, Jason. I'm just getting word from our Cardiff correspondent, John.
Yeah. Why am I our Cardiff correspondent?
You know all things Wales.
It's getting tiresome. I don't think we're going to see Natai or Jenkins. I think we're short of second rows big time. We've got your man Deeney and Ross Maloney, and that's it. It's up to Ruddock to step up after that, really. If they can,
might see someone like Soroka.
Yeah, that's another possibility. I don't know if he's fit. And we've 20 off with and I think they're missing 7, and they've got some kind of handy players who are just what you want for this type of game. They've a few centers and a few non-Welsh lads that are very handy and tough and hard to beat. So yeah, this could be the end of our 16-game undefeated run quite easily. I'd say if
Cardiff have the greatest travellers, though.
If any of the 3 of us could run the length of a rugby field, we might be able to bring our boots to the game and get a game, because it's just we're just very short of bodies. I don't think we're quite that desperate. I mean, what people are forgetting is that some Leinster, so some of the Leinster players will be back in Leinster camp tomorrow. That not everyone is going to be ring fenced. So some of those guys may be available. I'm not saying they will be, but I'm saying they may be available because the Irish camp is finished now, or at least this section of it. So some guys may be available. There might be guys, for example, who are available for Ireland that Andy Farrell, who hasn't played for a while, Andy Farrell wants to get a run out. He might want James Lowe, for example, to get some meat under his belt. Well,
James Lowe is back in.
Yeah.
Ireland, apparently.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Andy Farrell
Yeah.
might want him to get some meters under his belt. He might want to see Ryan Baird playing second row. You don't. I'm not saying he will. I'm not saying we'll get those guys, but I'm saying that there is a bit more complexity to it. It's not those guys are completely gone and completely ring fenced, but there'll be a bit more depth there than we think. We'll still be a bit skinny though, which is something that's never been said about me.
What I was about to say was Leo Cullen and the boys have a record of pulling stuff together when they need to, and having fellas motivated to take their chance. You know, guys who haven't had a go yet, who are just standing in the wings, and and don't forget they're training. Like Josh van der Fleer is the world player of the year. Like, if you're training with that guy, you're not looking around at, who is there in other countries that, no, this guy is the world player of the year. You're training opposite him every week, you're becoming a better player. And the same with all our internationals. So there are guys there that are learning a whole heap from our coaching team and learning from playing opposite those guys who are waiting for a chance. And I don't think they're going to get too many chances. So they're going to grab it with both hands, and hopefully some of them make a name for themselves in this kind of a game. And
that's what Jamie Osborne did.
Yeah. And McCarthy, it was only a year ago McCarthy made his debut in a very similar time, So hopefully there's another few nuggets unearthed in this coming game. We shall see.
And I remember Ryan Baird, I'm not sure if it was his debut, but I remember him scoring an absolutely sensational try in and around this time of the year. It was just before the lockdown started against Glasgow.
Yeah.
He scored 3.
3, that's right, but one of them was just sensational.
Yeah.
I just had a look there. Cardiff have 8 of their squad in the Welsh squad, so I don't think they're as hamstrung as we might be with personnel missing.
Of course, the other side of that, Jay, is, and I know I said it before, but there's a reason why there's only 8 of them.
Yeah, sure. They've got a 6-2 record in the league so far, and of course they weren't playing in the European Champions Cup. They were playing in the Challenge Cup.
Did they qualify?
I didn't actually check that, so I'm not sure.
I think that all the URC teams, with the exception of Zebre, did qualify.
Okay. Shows you the high standards of the competition.
Yeah, or is it like that the English clubs are struggling financially and can't,
Benetton, the second place team in the top 14 is Stade Francais, and Benetton gave them a hiding.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's probably not being switched on for the competition, If you don't give a shite about the Heineken Cup, how less of a shite about the Challenge Cup. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, boys, it's always as interesting. Thanks very much for watching, and if you are following us, please give us a like and a subscription. Cheers.
And don't forget, we're on Spotify.